given the talk that we've heard, and this is not going to be a He-Man show, but given the talk that people have been speaking about the greatness that He-Man is, because that's what they're talking, Brian. They're not saying little words like this is good. No, this is, you hear the words amazing,
right? Heavenly, yeah,
heavenly, yo, heavenly. Who describes a movie that way? Never. What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Jet Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. The void, the stuff that we sort of talk about that most people aren't necessarily thinking about so much. We got a lot to talk about in this episode. Rian Johnson, Star Wars. Callum Turner, rumors for Bond. I never heard of this guy, Brian, but I did look him up, and we'll see. Martin Campbell has advice for Denis Villeneuve in his turn as the director of James Bond. There's is this happening in terms of Christian Bale joining Heat 2, Brian?
Supposedly that is happening. We got to talk about Heat 2 because this movie
the cast
become
is getting
what the
crazy,
hell is going on around here.
This is the doomsday equivalent here. We got names up in this joint. Jungle Cruise 2 is dead. We'll talk about that because that's interesting.
Signals.
Signals.
That's why I put it on the list. Yeah.
Okay. Noah Centineo and Sydney Sweeney for a live-action Gundam movie. Very interesting, which makes me think about Voltron and where that's at.
Mm-hmm.
There's some talk about F1 sequel talk. We'll see if Tom Cruise, his guy is in there facing Brad Pitt's guy. And a new segment on the show, What We're Watching. Rian Johnson.
Oof.
There had been talks about a trilogy that he was set to helm, and now it is apparently done. It is no longer there's no longer progress on that film. What happened there?
Rian Johnson's probably going to be one of the seminal figures in Star Wars history forever, because I feel like Last Jedi is the moment where that's like the crossing the Rubicon moment for the IP. It's a movie that is almost universally loved by critics, but it is, you want divisive. This is the movie where it started, right? This is the moment where Star Wars fandom fractures. And the ideas that Johnson put into that movie, from where he wrote Luke Skywalker to a place where Mark Hamill famously said, I disagree with every decision you've made about this character, to choices about force sensitivity that some people loved, right? The idea that anyone could have it, and some people hate it. This is one of those instances where I actually defend Kathleen Kennedy, because I feel like when you saw the script and saw the finished cut of this movie, I think it's perfectly defensible to say, wow, he made a fun and different and took us in some new directions type of Star Wars movie, and this is going to crush. Therefore, I want him back, and I want him doing more Star Wars, because he's a Star Wars lover and a Star Wars geek. But then the world spoke and saw it differently.
Yeah.
And the box office for Last Jedi is fine, but it's way low. Again, we talk about expectations. This is a movie that made like $1.3 billion, but was seen as a liability to the universe.
Crazy.
And therefore, all of a sudden, there was retconning of Last Jedi in a hurry in Rise of Skywalker. And they're immediately trying to pivot away from the ideas of Rian Johnson. And then they get cold feet on the trilogy, and it twists, and finally now you get the confirmation that it's dead. I don't think it's a surprise at all it's not happening. I just think it's fascinating to see how this particular cookie crumbled over the course of 10 years. And he's fine. I mean, his Knives Out trilogy has gone on to be a great success at Netflix, and he's still a super creative guy. But like, this is still, I think, when you rewind the clock, the moment where Star Wars goes to a place from which it has never recovered.
Yeah, and to just bring it back very quickly to the superhero genre, we're at the same place where with these the MCU in terms of, can it recover from what they've done, the ideas that they put out there, can it recover? My question to you, Brian, where do they go from here? I mean, we have the Starfighter movie, The Last Starfighter.
No, you think that's the 1980s one with the kid. Remember the kid and the one alien fighting the whole. There's that movie's called The Last Starfighter. This is just called. I think it's just called Starfighter, like Star Wars : Starfighter. Yeah.
And then outside of the one that we're waiting for, and hopefully it gets done, which is the Dawn of the Jedi, which is like
immortality. Take it. It's yours.
Where do we go from here?
Still to be determined, right? Because we're waiting on this Simon Kinberg. Is it a Skywalker trilogy? Is it not? So I think it's still to be determined. There's these growing reports that next year is finally Kathleen Kennedy's last year at Lucasfilm. So then it becomes who's in charge and like what direction. Mando Grogu, I think, will have a lot to say about this. How successful that is, I think will, because there was also talk this week of like, oh, now maybe we will do a season 4 of Mando Grogu. We won't just wrap it up with this movie. Like, it just shows you, like, there isn't really a plan. There really is not a plan there right now because they don't really know what works, right? They don't have the thing that has always worked in recent times to fall back on.
No.
I agree with you. I mean, we're in agreement. Dawn of the Jedi is the most exciting thing they have on the board. The other thing, we never talked about it, but like there was talk of, remember that long gestating Rogue Squadron? They were maybe converting that to a TV show. So it just shows you like they just don't have a real vision or plan for how to get Star Wars back to where they think Star Wars, and I think they're right, think Star Wars ought to be, which is it's a big deal event every time it comes out.
So is Patty Jenkins still associated with Rogue Squadron?
Technically, yes.
Listen, when we saw Andor and we saw the flight scenes in there,
yeah.
If it's anything like that and we get more of it, I want to see that. Obviously, I don't want it to be anything in terms of how, because Wonder Woman 84 was bad, man. It was bad, yo. It was bad.
The legacy of George Lucas becomes complicated, but let's not get it twisted. The aerial battle at the end of New Hope is the single greatest aerial battle that's ever been put on big screen. It still is. And if you want to give me anything else, I'm not listening.
Yeah.
I'm not. That's 15 minutes of perfection. And he did it
in a cave with a box of scraps.
Models and puppets and toys 50 years ago. But tell me, for those 15 minutes, that is not everything you wanted in terms of a battle in space that Star Wars itself has never matched. That's why I was always interested in Rogue Squadron, because I was like, someone has taken a shot at trying at that title. They want to do something that is in the spirit of that. And I was like, I am here for that.
Yeah.
But, and I don't know, TV show to me feels small. Like you said, like when I watch some of the Andor flight sequences, I'm like, I'd kill to see those on a big screen.
But seeing it nonetheless was amazing.
Ridiculous. Like the scene in the first season with the, whatever it is, the celestial phenomenon, and the scene in the second season where he's in that Imperial fighter, like shooting down on the planet. Like, that's insane stuff.
I know people that haven't seen Andor, Brian, and then we'll move on to Bond. And I'm like, what are you watching then if you haven't seen Andor? It's like, I can't, like, you haven't seen Andor, yo? You haven't seen it by now, yo? And you're a Star Wars fan? That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. If you're a Star Wars fan and you haven't seen Andor, I'm sorry, but we can't have a conversation about anything else if you haven't seen Andor.
They've seen The Acolyte, but not Andor? Like, that's tough, man. That's tough.
And I can understand if you saw The Acolyte and didn't see Andor because you're like, I can't watch any more of this. But Andor, if you trust what I say, and I know some people that, they know that I watch stuff, and I recommend, people usually put it on the list. Like Captain Rick, I'll put it on the list. You know what I'm saying? But to say that you haven't watched Andor, yo, Bond. Campbell has some advice for Denis Villeneuve. I don't know what advice he has for him, Brian. Has it been said, the advice that he had for him?
Yeah, no, he has a quote. So what makes Martin Campbell's name significant in this is he was the director of both GoldenEye, which relaunched Bond with the Pierce Brosnan, and Casino Royale, which relaunched Bond with Daniel Craig. So he is actually well qualified to speak on relaunching James Bond, which Denis Villeneuve is now doing. I got a chuckle out of this, where he was asked by a publication if he had advice, and he just said, quote, "Don't break what isn't broken. It doesn't need to be a reboot. It just needs to be a bloody good Bond film. If we release GoldenEye or Casino Royale next week, they'd feel just as potent. So don't bleep with it. There's a lot of fertile ground for Bond, particularly the way the world is at the moment. So I just hope they don't break what's not broken." End quote.
What do you think about that piece of advice? I think he is correct in you put Bond in missions, man. Don't go too deep into the Bond character, yo. Just go into who he is and how he makes his decision, how he sees the world. Don't try to rediscover this dude. Just get the guy to go on his missions and be the guy that he's always been. I don't need to get too deep into, you know what I'm saying? What are your thoughts on his approach?
I think it's really interesting that Campbell frames it this way because he did a little of both. GoldenEye is very much, I think, a return to classic Bond form, right? It had gotten a little dry with the Timothy Dalton versions. And so in Pierce Brosnan, they're like, hey, let's bring back the sex appeal. Let's bring back a little bit of the cheeky humor. Let's bring back some bigger action, right? But as you say, let's not get overcomplicated here. In the Casino Royale, he actually does start Craig down the path of backstory, right? We get Bond before he's 00. We get the origin. So I think it's interesting because he did both successfully.
Yes.
And he seems to be kind of telling Villeneuve, go more the GoldenEye route. This quote is definitely kind of saying, like, just bring it back around and play the hits. That's basically what he's saying. And that's an interest. I kind of feel like that might be a little bit of a reaction to, hey, Daniel Craig just took us on the Bond personal journey.
Yeah, man, this dude had a kid.
Don't need to. Yeah, we saw Skyfall was home, right? We saw this, like his family history, his personal history. Like, you don't need to repeat that.
Yeah,
I think he is kind of making that analogy of as successful as the Craig series was, that the series might be a little bit where the Dalton Bond left it, meaning like it needs just sort of like a, hey, bring it back home and make people happy. He says something about Bond himself too, which I thought was also simple, but kind of makes very common sense because he was asked about who should play Bond. And he makes the analogy of, Brosnan and Craig, when they got the part, were known actors, but not necessarily like megastars. And so he said, quote, frankly, you don't need a star because James Bond is a star and the film is the star. Just find a terrific actor who looks right for the part, end quote.
I agree 100%.
I do too.
I agree 100%. Again, people had their wishes, which obviously I don't think it'll come true with Henry Cavill as the guy. That ship has sailed. Would people still turn out to go see that iteration? Yes, of course. But how long can you do that for? I don't think they're looking to do a one-off situation, right? Although you probably could still do it, but we got to move on into something that we can get done very fairly easily and not sort of deal in this whole Henry Cavill situation. It can't be about Henry Cavill. It has, because that's what it'll be. It'll be Henry Cavill, and it won't be about Bond. So I think he's correct in the approach.
To be clear, I don't know that Henry Cavill super recently has said he wants the part either. I mean, I know he auditioned for it 20 years ago, but even though he's an Amazon guy, and that's what people are making that connection, I don't know that he's publicly lobbied for it super recently. So that's hard to say. The name that has come up is Callum Turner. So this is now we're into the latest of the casting rumor mill, but 35 years old, is a British actor, so he meets the requirement there. You probably know his face from places like Masters of the Air, the Apple Plus TV series, Boys in the Boat, Clooney directed historical drama. Also in tabloid circles, probably better known as the husband of Dua Lipa. He technically checks the boxes, right? 35 years old, British, kind of has, a good look to him, pretty tall, strapping guy. I don't know, we've heard nothing from Villeneuve, and I feel like that's the voice that I'm waiting to hear something from about where he wants to go with the character. But, this is a new name being thrown in there that, he meets some of the criteria. I don't know that I've seen him play a part that screamed classic Bond to me, but I get where people are pulling this from. So anyway, new name on the board, actually is now the betting favorite, if you care about that, slightly, has taken the lead from Aaron Taylor-Johnson. So that's the new guy people are focusing on, Callum Turner.
When we first got Daniel Craig as a possibility, everybody was like, what? Everybody was like, we gave him the Michael Keaton sort of treatment.
He's blonde. Can't have that.
Yeah. He doesn't look the part. He doesn't look imposed. Whatever it was, there was a if or but associated with his turn as Bond, and we're not in the room when these guys are reading for it. We're not seeing that aha moment when they're reading the lines, and which I've been curious, Brian. We have these auditions or these takes from different possibilities. One of which was the guy from, he played Hitman. He was in Homeland. I forget his name. I think he was in the latest Jurassic Park as well. Rupert Friend.
Oh, Rupert Friend. You're right. He was in the new. You're right. He was in the new Jurassic World. Yeah.
Yeah.
How old is he though?
44. Probably a bit too old, but still looks the part, I think. Okay. But they all had their turn trying out for the role. What did you think of Henry Cavill's reading for it? I'm curious.
Not bad. I mean, he's like 20 years old though when he does that. He's still on the tutors. It's just, it's he's too young. I mean, he's too young to play the part.
And now he's too old.
I was just saying,
he missed the window.
This is sort of a recurring theme a little bit in his career of he's just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or not quite in the right place at the right time on a number of occasions to really maximize. But yeah, like I said, it's not that I think he could still do a good job doing it now. I'm just not sure that that's what he wants, and I'm not sure that's what Villeneuve wants. So we would see.
So again, the only reason why I bring it up is because we're not in the room to sort of get that aha moment, like this is the guy for our movie. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up, Brian, and to see who else is possibly in the running for it. Heat 2, Brian. The names associated with this movie continue to be impressive. We have Adam Driver. We also have Leonardo DiCaprio, right?
DiCaprio is in. He's in.
Okay.
Yeah. Austin Butler.
Supposedly
in.
Now we have Christian Bale joining. Is this confirmation or rumor?
Not officially confirmed, but supposedly in talks. And he has worked with Michael Mann before on Public Enemies with Johnny Depp back in the day.
Again, if you haven't seen, this is another movie that you haven't seen, then it's what have you been watching? This is my next question, because Heat is one of those movies that if it's on, you watch it, because there's just the cast in there is just remarkable, and this cast is turning out to be the same sort of situation. Your thoughts, Brian, on Christian Bale possibly joining Heat 2?
I keep trying to match the actors to the characters based upon the novel that Michael Mann wrote, which is a prequel and a sequel. And that's my biggest struggle is like, I'm not finding the parallels to where, okay, supposedly you're supposed to get a Chris Shaharless after the end of Heat. That's the Val Kilmer character kind of escapes to like, I think it's like South America or Latin America. That's the sequel part. And then there's the prequel of the Pacino Vincent Hanna character and the De Niro Neil McCauley character from their Chicago days. And so the Adam Driver as a younger version of De Niro was the original rumor. And I was like, all right, you know, maybe I could sort of see that. And then Austin Butler as Shaharless, and I was like, well, age-wise, that doesn't work, but I could see Butler channeling that version of Kilmer. But then this Bale and DiCaprio thing came along, and I'm like, who are they playing? I don't know. Like, as actors, they're not taking a back seat to anybody. They're the top billed people in the movie. And I'm like, but they can't be a young Hannah, unless they're de-aging these guys. They can't be a young Hannah and McCauley, but they can't be an old anything unless they're new characters. So I kind of am just like, this movie has become one of the great fascinations to me. And by the way, this is another property that Michael Mann was shopping around, couldn't find a distributor for. And guess who ponied up the money? Amazon took this over and is now distributing it. And lo and behold, the second their checkbooks got involved, Leonardo DiCaprio and Christian Bale showed up, or seemingly are showing up. So this is now like a major consideration for me as a future project.
Bradley Cooper is also associated
Also
with it, right?
rumored to maybe be in this part in some capacity.
Again, Heat was an amazing film. This one is turning out to be a story with some very interesting characters as far as the actors portraying them. Very, very interesting. And is definitely, do you know when this is supposed to come out?
No, I mean, Michael Mann is notoriously slow worker, so I would say
him and Matt Reeves hang out.
2027 at the earliest. But look, Michael Mann between Black Hat and Ferrari was like 10 years that he didn't make a movie. I mean, this is a guy who is, even in his 80s, is a meticulous sort of worker, right? Thinking about what he's going to put together. And I think for him to revisit this whole idea has just been sort of strange. But like I said, he wrote a whole book. This isn't like, so like the script exists because he wrote and published like an entire novel that actually sold.
You read that novel?
I have not read it cover to cover. I've read a bit. I've seen a bit of it. I read a little extras. I know what it's about. I have not read it cover to cover. But that is not a film that I ever thought you would see become like an IP. And 30 years later, he is trying to do it. But yes, I agree with you. It is one of those like seminal texts for crime dramas, right? I mean, Chris Nolan cites it as like, it is literally the inspiration for The Dark Knight. That's what he was trying to create, was a Heat style story in Gotham. And as you said, it is fabulously acted. I think it's one of those when you go back and watch it. And I've actually heard Michael Mann talk about the acting, and then you go back and watch it and you kind of almost have a greater appreciation, where he has this thing about how De Niro plays the thief, where he says, like, if you watch him, even in the opening scene, he comes off the subway, and if you look, he doesn't touch anything. And like, he's like, we settled on that as a master thief, he would leave no footprint. So he's wearing this like nondescript gray suit. He doesn't grab the handrail. He like doesn't touch the door. Like, these little things where you're like, these master actors kind of come up with like, hey, this is what my character would do. And then he said, like, it's not made apparent in the film, but Pacino's a drug addict apparently, which is part of why Hannah is so crazy and unhinged in that movie. Is supposedly he's under the influence some of the time, and you don't really know that. So there's all these things when you go back and watch the movie that have aged well. I think Kilmer is bizarrely awesome in that movie too, as this like gambling addict on the verge of domestic violence, but then like he's a lethal sharpshooter, like, you know, cool under pressure, like, yeah. And we always say like the supporting guys are flawless, right? Like Michael T. Williamson, young Ashley Judd, young Natalie Portman in a child role, and then you've got like Wes Studi, James Levine, the guy who played Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, like Dennis Haysbert as like the driver for 5 minutes, like Danny Trejo, like,
yeah.
incredible acting. And like the idea that Heat 2 might actually take a run at Heat 1 in terms of the
It's
cast,
very exciting prospect, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Jungle Cruise 2. It's no longer moving forward, Brian. What happened there?
I think this is actually one of those where like the news is less significant than like what the news could signify. And that's just simply like the Dwayne Johnson box office and sort of studio hold. Because, this movie was a commercial disaster, right? It was like a $200 million plus budgeted movie. Disney basically got caught with this during COVID, right? So they never really had a chance, in fairness. But comes out, they put it in theaters, makes almost no money, goes to streaming based on a very popular longtime ride, obviously. But it is probably most famously, in retrospect, the movie where Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt meet, because those two have obviously gone on to a pretty successful collaboration, and that's seemingly continuing in the future here in the Scorsese upcoming crime drama. Speaking of crime dramas. But when I saw this, I just was like, huh. So Disney is maybe kind of thinking about the rock business a little bit differently. This came out in the same week that the live action Moana teaser dropped.
Which was pretty dope.
So it's not that they're out of the rock business, but they're not just doing whatever with him.
Yes.
That's what I took from it, is like there's going to be a little more.
Right? And Kevin Hart.
A little more give and take here about what we're willing to do with you, because even The Rock, in admitting this is happening, said basically, quote, when Disney came under new leadership, they shifted coming out of COVID and shifted the business in a lot of ways. I think they looked at that property and thought, we did it once, not sure if we should revisit it again, despite whether or not the chemistry was great, end quote. So he's kind of admitting that with Iger coming back, the tides kind of have turned a little bit against maybe what he was able to do previously. So his big success, like Moana, where he's the voice of Maui, sure, no problem. Iger will do the sequel to that any day. This thing, which didn't do well, they're not just going to do it because The Rock wants to do it. It also made me wonder, not that Smashing Machine was ever going to be like a behemoth box office hit, but it made me wonder the timing of this. Had Smashing Machine been a commercial success on its low budget, like that was like a $50 million budgeted movie, right? 50, 60. So let's say that had made 200 million, 180. So it makes firm profit. And there was bigger buzz around The Rock's performance. Does Disney cancel this? Like, that's one of those questions where I'm like, did they also look at that movie failing commercially and kind of say like, yeah, like, you're cold. You are cold right now.
Absolutely. Again, they're in the business of making money. And the vehicle through which they make that money is making movies. And if the movies that they're making aren't making money, what choice do you have? Right? So that's that for that sequel, which I never really was interested in the first place, and I never watched it. My
kid likes it. My kid likes it. We did the ride. The ride is very old fashioned at this point, but it's like she enjoyed it because she had seen the movie, so she actually likes that one. But yeah, it's not really for me, not really for you.
Yeah. This is interesting because every time I think about Gundam and Voltron, I think about the disastrous thought process behind What If 3 and what they tried to pull off there, Brian. This whole Avengers form into a robot. We've heard rumors of, obviously, Voltron, which we were very excited about, but that excitement has sort of been depleted because of where perhaps it may be heading towards. So this Gundam situation, I don't know if it sort of excites me because I think these ideas usually come up either because something that is being done has a lot of potential and we should seize that opportunity now. What are your thoughts, Brian, on this live-action Gundam movie starring Noah Centineo and Sydney Sweeney?
So Gundam is not... I didn't grow up, and I have not been as close to... I'm aware of it. I know what it is.
Yes.
But I grew up with Voltron and Transformers. I didn't really get into Gundam as much. But I will say this. I think there definitely is a Gundam push. Netflix has made some. They put out some projects which are sort of not quite live action, but kind of like playing around in animated space.
Mm-hmm.
And this project, I think, making a pretty smart move in terms of trying to get some buzz and appeal with the casting. Listen, Sydney Sweeney, whatever you think of her, it's become one of those names that matters to a lot of people in a lot of respects. She's an unlikely choice to be the female lead of a Gundam movie, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets your attention when you've got her. Noah Centineo is building a really interesting career to me. He is all of a sudden popping up in IP roles across a wide array of properties, but maybe in an unconventional way. So ill-fated turn and forgettable turn in Black Adam, I might forgive him for that. But Ken in a Street Fighter adaptation that has some potential. John Rambo in the Baker Team prequel, which we are very excited about.
And we still have a show to put out for that. I'm just waiting for the right moment.
And now potentially the lead with Sydney Sweeney in a live-action Gundam project. That's a menu. That's a menu for a young actor who's staying away from Marvel and maybe probably done with DC after the one turn of Black Adam is saying, but I can still matter in a lot of mainstream ways in these parts. I think there's a chance that Gundam kind of out Voltron's Voltron. I got to be honest, like I am the biggest Voltron like fan along with you of wanting this, but I have heard nothing about this project except for its very beginning casting.
Yes.
That has gotten me excited. Everything since then has gotten me more concerned. The concern about the release, how they're going to do it, the concern about like, hey, it's a new generation of pilots and Cavill and Sterling K. Brown are the old generation. And I think it's not a good sign that we've heard nothing, no buzz at all about this, about what's in it, about the villains, about how it looks. Like think about Masters of the Universe where like all of a sudden the leaks started to come out about what was happening and how, right? A year in advance. And Voltron, it's like the project, it's almost like the project was canceled. So all of a sudden, I'm like, if Gundam swoops in there with like, mechanized robots and kaiju type action and, with young stars that are buzzy and viral and does a good job, it's like, that's the Voltron lane. They just swooped in and took it. And by the way, not for nothing, this remains one of the most popular anime worldwide. There was a great stat in this article that I sent you. They sell more than $600 million worth of Gundam toys every year. This thing matters to a lot of people.
Hence, they see the potential. They see the business. Listen, again, like you said, I've never grew up watching Gundam, always heard of it, seen snippets of it, but never really quite caught my attention. This is what makes, for me, Voltron very disappointing if they're not able to be successful in this project. It'll be very disappointing, given, like you said, and I was thinking about it when you were saying it. Given the talk that we've heard, and this is not going to be a He-Man show, but given the talk that people have been speaking about the greatness that He-Man is. Because that's what they're talking, Brian. They're not saying little words like, this is good. No, you hear the words amazing.
Right. Heavenly. Yeah.
Heavenly, yo. Heavenly? Who describes a movie that way? Never. If Voltron fails to capture the imagination of those people who watched it, people who perhaps thought when they heard that this movie was coming out, that they would take their kids to go see. And we've heard nothing.
Nothing! Nothing!
The last I heard, which was the potential of it being released out on the streaming platform.
Yeah, it was basically filming wrapped, and then all of a sudden it wasn't going to be theatrical at an Amazon studio that was trying to increase theatrical output. That is a bad sign.
It's a very disappointing sign.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Yes.
This is what happens when the guy who's directing it his track record is mostly mediocre stuff. Like this is a guy
And
who
who's
did like
doing it?
Ross and Marshall Thurber, who did like Skyscraper and Red Notice and a lot of the rock stuff over the last 15 years. As I said, Travis Knight has done interesting work and been nominated for an Oscar at one point in time. There is a difference in terms of who you give the keys to.
That's one guy I would like to talk about. And I would talk to him about He-Man and his association with the IP and if he grew up watching it and why he's given his all to do this.
So I know he grew up watching it because of that opening scene in Bumblebee. That is the most child of the 80s moment of Transformers. You don't make a scene like that unless you understood Generation 1. That entire sequence is like, I watched the cartoons and I don't care if I'm making a Bumblebee movie, I'm stealing 5 minutes to live my dream on Cybertron. That's how I know this guy, at the very least, grew up immersed in those IPs. And I bet you if you gave him a budget and said, hey, shoot me a couple scenes, I bet you he could do it for almost any series of that era. It's like Thundercats, G.I. Joe, I bet you he could do it for almost, just because you can tell that's what he lived on.
Yeah. Just like we did the Baker Team cast, we got to do a Thundercat casting show, Brian.
That's another project, by the way, we haven't had an update in a long time since they said Adam Wingard was doing that like super animated version of it. No updates. Another project we're still waiting on stuff.
I think it'll pick up after He-Man, for sure.
So my question would just be, if He-Man really hits, do you think they go full live action? Do you think they pivot the format if they're not far enough along? Do you think they actually change what they want to do with it?
I think you do.
I think it makes an argument for it. Yeah.
Hells yeah. Third Earth, Cat's Lair, live action, Thundercats. You get Aaron Pierre to be Lionel. You get Diamond Hansu to be Panthro. Let me not.
Don't give away all your trade secrets yet.
F1 sequel talk, Brian.
Yeah, inevitable.
Yes,
inevitable.
What is the latest on that?
Yeah, you do $630 million of the global box office on an original project, and in this day and age, you're going to get a sequel, especially when it's well reviewed and well liked the way it is. The only thing I thought was interesting, so Joe Kosinski basically said, quote, "We're in the next stage of dreaming up what the next chapter for Sunny Hayes would be, and for Apex GP." I thought the quote was interesting because, and I think it's inevitable, but I at least entertained the idea of, should a sequel center on the Sunny Hayes character again versus the Damson Idris character? Because the Idris character in F1 parlance would be the future. That's a young man's sport.
Yes.
Right? Other than Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, who are in their 40s, those drivers are between 18 and 27. And so the Joshua Pierce character is clearly like the character who approximates the current F1 star driver. So you can make a case that in a follow-up, the movie should actually shift its focus away from Sonny toward Pierce. But obviously Brad Pitt is Brad Pitt. And that movie is a Brad Pitt showcase, if there ever was a Brad Pitt showcase. So I think it's notable that Kosinski says for Sunny Hayes and Apex GP. Because remember, they're not working together at the end of that movie anymore.
Yeah.
So I just noted that like they're clearly not doing the sequel without Brad, but I'll be interested to see how they can make the sequel. I think make the sequel take you into the F1 world in other directions, right? They did such a good job on the first one of being like, if for the uneducated, here's some really cool stuff about how F1 works.
Yes.
I think for the sequel to work, they've got to replicate that. They got to go, what are new things we didn't show you about the cars, about the teams, about the world that we can use to drive another, because that story is pretty formulaic. So what can we use to drive, something and play more hits and let Kosinski do even more visually with the cars?
Do you get Tom Cruise to be involved?
I would not. I think you turn it into more of a circus spectacle. I mean, it's not that Cruise is a detractor from any project that he's in. I just think it's a force to bring Cole Trickle. To me, that's not an F1 movie. Does that make sense? That's like a Cole Trickle, Sunny Hayes driving movie. So if you're going to call it F1 the sequel, and it's going to have the support of the actual Formula One governing body, the showcase has to be the cars, the circuit, and the actual things that make the sport go. And I think Tom Cruise versus Brad Pitt sort of takes a little bit away from that.
Certainly, but I think his involvement in the background, perhaps he's sponsoring a new driver. I don't know, but he's sort of like in the executive seat now, and perhaps behind the scenes, orchestrating certain situations for this next movie. I don't know, but there was some hint, or I don't know necessarily. There was some interest from Tom Cruise wanting to be
Oh yeah.
possibly involved, right?
Oh,
So
there's a FOMO, man. FOMO big time from that guy. He's like, wait, that's my Top Gun Maverick director. He's like, I'm the vehicle guy. I did that like 30 years ago. Come on. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's what
So
that
who
was.
knows what his possible involvement may be in it, but certainly him in the driver's seat in the car certainly shouldn't be a thing in this next sequel. And what we're watching, Brian, I still have not sat down. We've been watching, which is a pretty interesting show. The Beast Within Me. I don't know.
Oh, is that the Claire Danes drama?
Yes.
Tell people, I haven't watched it. So this is exactly what this segment's for. People want to see what we're watching.
So we've been watching, me and my wife have been watching the Claire Danes, The Beast in Me show on Netflix. And it involves a writer who had previously had some success, but, has had some writer's block, so to speak. And her, a individual moves in next door who's pretty controversial, and is a murder mystery, right? Did he kill her? Did he? You know what I'm saying? And it's some very interesting twists that occur in that show that I think people would enjoy if they watched it, because interesting situations that occur in that show. But if you're into, because there's this one show that me and my wife watched a long time ago called The Killing. You ever heard of that? The Killing.
Yeah, that was an AMC show.
I believe so. That's with
was Sandra Oh on that show?
I don't know if that's her name, but
no, that's Killing Eve. Sorry, that's a different show. The Killing.
She was in World War Z. She was Brad Pitt's wife, I think. In that one.
Yes. You're right. Yes.
And the lead actor, male actor, was the guy from I forget. He did the RoboCop sequel, and he was Rick Flagg's Jr.
Kinnaman, Joel Kinnaman.
Yes. Phenomenal show. So this show, The Beast Within Me, has a little bit of those things in there, but I would recommend people watch that one. What is it that you're watching?
Origin for this was I had mentioned Last Samurai Standing last week, just as part of The Void, and I said, we should probably let people know, like, what are we watching? People might want to check it out. So the Netflix algorithm got me, because at the end of Last Samurai Standing, I got fed, if you like that, you might like this other sort of anime manga live action adaptation, Rurouni Kenshin, which somebody out there is going to be like, of course, you idiot. That's been around for over 10 years, right? And I'm not a manga guy. Like, I don't really, I know how big it is globally, but I don't read that stuff. So the algorithm fed it to me. I clicked on it. There are 4 parts to the manga. There are 5 films, but I think the first 4 films adapt the first 4 parts of the manga one by one. Mm-hmm. I am 3 films in, and if you start watching Last Samurai Standing and you like what you see in terms of this very tactile but also very beautiful kind of Hong Kong style, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon style, like sword play with large scale sets and melees, and you do like anime or manga, or you saw Netflix's One Piece live action and you like that, give this a spin and watch it with the Japanese language English subtitles. I watched the first movie with English dubbing and it was not great, and I switched and it was much better. The first movie, it takes a little while because you, especially if you're not familiar with the material, to get comfortable with the characters. But the first thing I noticed was the lead. I don't think I've ever seen an actor capture manga and anime poses in live action better than this guy. Every shot when he's on camera, he does the look down, look behind, like action pose, draw. It's unbelievable to me how good he is at like freeze framing what's on the page and then putting it into the scene. So that alone is like interesting. But when you get into parts 2 and 3, where they really turn up the action and sort of the large scale battle sequences, I think you'll really like the choreography. It is incredible. This is live action.
Okay.
But what he's able to do and what some of his opponents can do with a sword and what they're able to do with their footwork and the wire work is prime stuff to me. Like that, it looks good. It looks original. It's creative. It's got some of that like anime classic of like some of the weapons are sort of ridiculous. Like some of the costumes are a little ridiculous. It's almost like what you expect. They like very distinctive looking characters. But man, some of these people can move and do things that you're just like, this is really crazy cool. And this character has an odd twist where his samurai sword is backwards because he's taken a vow not to kill. So it's like a little Batman thing. So he carries a sword where the dull edge is what he hits with. So he has to disable and defeat every opponent without killing them. And that's actually part of what makes the duels challenging, because the other guy obviously doesn't share that sentiment. So you're seeing this constant, like the one guy's dueling him with a sharp-edged sword and he's fighting him with a dull-edged sword, but he's able to hit and move in a way that disables the opponent but leaves them alive. And it's I don't know. I think I've been really caught up in it. I'm 3 parts in and I was just like, this is actually
3 movies?
Movies, yeah. These are like 2 hours each.
Wow.
But like the first one's kind of like, it's kind of like Star Wars New Hope in that it's a little more standalone. It's like an intro standalone. Parts 2 and 3 are directly connected. Like they're like the same story, the same characters, exactly. And it resolves at the end of part 3. And then part 4 is like a big time jump. Rurouni Kenshin.
I will check it out.
So there you go. But yeah, if you, like I said, watch it in Japanese with the subtitles. Similar to Shogun on TV, it's much better heard with the original vocal kind of ticks and that sort of stuff. But man, the swordplay, and especially in the second and the third one. The first one, it's like you get a hint of it. He does some, like where you're like, wow, he's moving pretty fast. Second and third one, they stage some wild fights.
Interesting. Manga. You and I, Brian, if ever I visit Arizona or if ever you visit New Jersey, we got to watch Go-Go 13. I have the Blu-ray for that. It's so hard to find. I think if you try to find it online, it's probably like $200-$300 for the Blu-ray. It's crazy. And it's before Netflix licensed it and they had it, then Amazon, and then it just disappeared. But Go-Go 13 is just a dope anime, and we should definitely check that out. But yeah, The Void. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of all the Star Wars, Bond, Heat 2, Jungle Crew, and Gundam. And whether you want to, what kind of F1 sequel do you want to see? Yeah. If you did see it, hopefully you did, because that movie was dope. But let us know in the comment section below. And again, if you haven't heard it anywhere else, you heard it here first on the Nerd Gen Report.